so now we can start shooting, not at a specific target, but in the direction of finding a possible solution. I hope. So, discussion is open.
Can I start?
You can start.
I wonder if what we were talking here, maybe my question is for Helmut. Is there two types of research? One that's science, one that's not, or everything's science, but one is more. I mean, what's the difference? I mean, of a work that can be fully disclosed, and a work that in which nothing can be disclosed in regards to science. You know what I mean? Is it science? Or is it other kind of research?
Yeah, good question. I wasn't saying that nothing should be disclosed. You know, I mean, what I was saying is that it might not be possible to like give away the code and the data, but I very strongly believe in that we should share algorithms, we should share techniques, principles behind what we did. This is something different than giving away the source code or the data. As for the two types of visualization, I'm not so sure if it's really two types. It's two extreme sides of one field of the visualization field. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, thanks.
First, a very quick comment. Some of you might have been in 2003 or something like this at an InfoVis panel which had more or less the same title. What was 2 or 4 maybe, 3 or 4. I recall that either behind the desk or just in front of the desk there was Noam Gershon and George Robertson. They were somehow chairing or panels. Well, in any case, just briefly, what happened then is I think 90% the same questions, the same issues, but the urgency was seen, well, they said InfoVis in its it shows whatever you say that starting field, so it's not that urgent. But the same issues were. Now we are about like 8-9 years later. Apparently the urgency is large, but no solution yet. So what I have as a comment / question is, aren't we actually in all this talking about two different value / waste models, two different business models? Like in one case, you're working with the industry, say, and then, well, money is a value, a product is a value, and disclosing IP can be seen as waste, and actually even publishing, I dare say, might be seen as waste. They don't bloody care as long as the thing sells. There are big companies that have this model. On the other hand, we have the academic model, where publishing is important, impact is important, but in many journals, even National Research Council panels, software is not really seen as science. I've seen dozens of applications submitted to the Dutch National Research Council where people made a claim like, look, I have so many downloads, I made this software and so on. And they were quickly dismissed by software, not relevant. You have publications in this journal. So aren't we trying like a one-size-fits-all solution maybe to two different problems? That would be a comment.
I don't think we are. No, I think the point here is, okay, there's the middle ground. The middle ground is the company that sponsors people and wants the publication, but they don't want to have anything disclosed. That's the middle ground. That's the more the two extremes are not worrying. I mean, if the problem is I'm afraid of the code, so let's forget it. Just release the code, right? From the pure academic point of view, from the purely commercial point of view, which was Helmut's take here. Okay, he wants to publish. There's a PhD guy there working on that, but this is going to be in a product somehow, and the data cannot be disclosed. But there's this middle ground where many sponsors want the publication, but want to also keep the code and the data to themselves.
Aren't they somehow delusional in that sense?
They should. That's the point. That's what I mean. What is the model that we should be adopting? The scientific model, or the commercial model? Of course, it's two different values by all means. It's the middle ground that's the dangerous one. We want the publication. Okay, the publication is there. We have 100 publications. Nobody uses the technique because it's all it was, a publication. You know, that's where we should be. That's the ones we should be targeting. I have nothing against them. You know. So if you do want the publication, you should give out something in terms of allowing people to compare, because then we are going to ask people to compare when we review papers, and people will write a paragraph. My technique is better because of this and that, and call it comparison. That's all they can do.
Yes.
And it is a comparison in here. That's fine, but a small one in terms of advance. It doesn't advance things. So what I think we should be looking at is a model that helps advance science, which is what I suppose we're doing.
Do you have a direct link to? No.
No.
Go on, Katja.
Okay, I just want to mention that there might be something in between. I mean, really publishing code is one thing. I mean, that's the one extreme. I also can provide an executable. Yeah. For instance, that is a different level. I mean, I think that will be possible even with industrial partners. And depends on, yeah. But also for evaluation, we also publish in the medical image processing community, and there are several challenges in the MICAI community. Every year there are challenges on image processing, and actually you are not required to publish your code, but you have to publish a paper describing your method, and then you you have training data, and then you have test data. You don't have access to this test data, but it's evaluated using your executable. And then you can somehow really, you see the ranking, and it's a very hard ranking to be on the top. So I think that might be also a possibility to advance this, or to provide at least a little bit. And something else, I mean, we also, I know some people might kill me, yeah, within our industrial partners, we do it in this way. We first make a patent and then we publish it.
Wow.
That is
A large period.
Yeah, no. Actually, with the large companies, it is a process of 3 to 4 weeks before publication, before submission. It's going to the lawyer, and they file it, and in this moment, or even you can already submit it to review, because it's the date of publication, which is the one which is for the patent office, the one which is the publication, not the review. Yeah, so there is enough time to do so. So I think there are several ways. I mean, and from my experience, it was always possible to talk also with our industrial partners. I mean, it's clear that we cannot release the source code, but we are allowed to publish after patenting, if it's patentable.
Thanks for sharing your experiences.
I think what Alex comments is fair in the sense. I'm not sure what this Alex's intention is to say we shouldn't really try to put everything combined together to have a single mechanism. So if some people, or particularly with industry sponsor, with whatever the IP are concerned, and you don't really want to publish your algorithm, you don't really want to publish your core source code. In this case, maybe it's not necessarily a traditional technical paper is a good thing for you, and what we should be looking for is maybe some breaking news items in CGNA and the competition, which is also another approach, which is image processing community use. You run the competition, you don't necessarily need to release your source code, but you enter the competition all the time. And I know one of my colleagues back at my old institute was involved in the satisfiability solver, and they were in the satisfiability solver community. They run the competition almost every year. And they bring their own code, and they tidy up and make some secret modification each year, and it goes there to another competition next year. And it's sort of fun things, and it's help the publicity. It happens to be have a commercial value and various things. So we can looking at that. But for the technical part of the work, and what I can see is if we allow people not sort of facilitate reproducibility, and we'll do the community damage in the long run. And fortunately, most of our evaluation are not involving in so-called accuracy. And gradually we're going to have more accuracy like the evaluation. The problem with the accuracy-based evaluation in some community, I try not to point the finger at the. So in some community, you publish a paper, you don't need to publish your detail of your source code, you don't need to publish your parameter. But if you say, my algorithm produce and 85% of accurate. The next paper say, I'm going to do better, 87. Eventually, those figures are inflated. And the problem is really encouraging a corruptive behavior in the community. And every postgraduate PhD study in those communities, you often heard, I take those algorithms, there's no way I can produce the results they claim. I can't publish paper on it anymore because they're already getting to 95%, and then nobody will be able to publish it. And so Microsoft, when they done the connector, and in their meetings to say, we can't publish connector, it's only 70% to 75% accuracy. And I'm going to hate what community is.
How is that for Vega?
Yes. So more comments or questions on it?
Yeah, I don't want to hog the whole session, but if somebody else wants to ask a question. So what I think we need to ask is, what does it mean to publish? And what does the term publication actually mean? And if you want to publish, but you don't want to disclose anything, then you're not actually publishing, that's called marketing. And if you want to actually publish what you're doing, you have to provide something. And so since patents were mentioned, it's actually an interesting thing that a lot of people don't realize. Patents are a really good idea, actually, in principle. They're just usually done wrong. But the idea of a patent is it's a give and take. You publish your method, you publish how something works. For example, for a drug, you publish exactly how the drug works and what the components are and everything. But then you get protection for it for whatever, 15 years or whatever, because then you have essentially your monopoly on it. So there is and after that, everybody can use that. So there is basically a time lock on your invention, and so the give and take is that you give something, you give all your data, like all your good part of information out, but for that you get to be the first one to sell this for a while, and this is true for lots of different kinds of patents. Of course, we can argue whether that's a good idea for software patents, but that's a different kind of issue. But that's a type of publication actually. Patents are publications, and I think that model needs to be considered because that give and take needs to be weighed. And so if you want to publish just for the sake of publishing, then I think that's just the wrong approach. You have to know why you're actually doing that and what it is that you're contributing. And now I forget where I actually was going with this. But the point is that I think we need to be. Oh yeah, so I wanted to talk on about what Min had this list of different types of papers. I think that's actually really important. Very few papers really fit exactly into one category. But if we talk about applications versus techniques versus models, I think that's exactly. So this is really very important to understand the difference, and we need to evaluate them differently, obviously. So the questions that we ask about an application paper or a system paper needs to be very different than when we ask about a theory or an algorithm thing. So I think that needs to be taken into account. We need to be different models for what we require, but there need to be, I think, clear requirements that make that much stronger than we have right now to have a reasonable balance of what you give and what you get for it. So if you can publish a technique, for example, without providing much information about how it actually works, just showing some pictures, I think that's just not okay. That's just not enough information. You have to provide more than that. But with an application paper, it's going to be a bit different. Obviously, I understand the issues with providing data and everything. But my last comment actually on that is that in software engineering, there's this idea of testing, which isn't very common in academia. But people write lots and lots of tests in actual real software, and they have to produce test data for that. And that's actually the data that you could provide, because that's not usually secret data. And so that kind of thing can be published with your algorithm, even if the actual data you're using is not publishable. But I think that the question we need to ask is what do we have to give, and what do we get from it? And I think that's really where we need to be honest and careful on both sides to have a reasonable balance of how these things work.
So, do you?
Now that you mentioned the paper types, I can share an experience from a different community, the computational linguistics. They have in their main conference a paper type that is called something like resource and what was it, tool. So if they put a lot of effort in generating data sources or tools, and if you submit the tool or the data source together with the paper to the review, you declare that you will be willing to make this open source, and then you get a bonus on top of the review grades. So there's something you can gain. You increase the probability that your paper will actually be published. And I think the main goal there is not really reproducibility, but reusability. So someone else can use your data source, your tool, for their research. And this is also, in my point of view, it's also kind of a scientific contribution. Maybe not as in the paper types we have here, but maybe this is something we could think of. And of course, this might not be interesting for industries who are not able to share their IP, but this might be a paper type other people could go for.
Maybe I can pick up on that already. So I don't think it's a good idea to change the rating or of some scientific works just because you are willing or you're allowed to give it away or not. Because this might in the end lead to this split of the community, as I was saying before, so there should be really some careful thoughts about that. And also on the patenting, that's a very good comment, but I think actually what is happening with the patenting is something completely different. I mean, everybody's trying to write patents in a way that nobody else can do it the same way it did. So it's something like on the contrary than what you are proposing here, what you want to have actually. So
that's what I'm saying. The principal idea is a good one, but it's just too many lawyers involved. I mean, the problem is not that if you read patents from like the 1800s, they're perfectly clear. They're like scientific papers. You can build the thing. If you want to build whatever somebody patented in 1885, you could do it. You just get the stuff, you build it. It's right there. It's basically a blueprint for the whole thing. But I don't know. Starting in the 80s, I guess. So one more little story. IBM used to have a journal that was called something Disclosure Journal. They used to publish things all the time in their IBM Disclosure Journal. It was in the 60s. Because they were producing so much stuff, the labs, that they wanted to have it published before somebody else could take the same idea and patent it. So it would be prior art. But they wouldn't want to actually patent everything themselves. They just said, well, let's just throw it out there. It's like a fire hose of all the stuff that IBM is producing so that nobody else can claim it. And they stopped doing it like in the 80s, and now they're just patenting everything. And it's like 10 billion patents a year from IBM. But the way they're now written is that they're all kind of these intractable sentences that nobody understands. But that's exactly the problem. That's what I'm saying. The practice of patenting is totally misguided and really bad right now. But the principal idea is a good one. And so I think we should go with the idea, not so much with the practice of patents.
Yeah, thanks. I think also commenting, if I also could comment on this. I think that's also basically the idea behind this, right? I mean, if you have the patent, then you could easily give out the software for test use or whatever. And then it doesn't matter if the patent is useless, because you can at least use the software and compete with the software, right? I mean, that's the main focus in the community, or the main use for the community would be not to apply the biological whatever software to biology data, but you basically want to use it to compare with your method. And I mean, for this, it's okay to have like a lawyer-based patent, but as long as I can write to the EuroRVVV center and ask for the software, or at least for some test software that does what I want to do, right? So I think, yeah, that's a two-sided coin, so to say, somehow.
I think the nature of this patenting, I mean, that is not really, in most of the cases, I mean, there are some patents which really produce a lot of money, but most of patents are just used as basis for negotiations. So more or less, I mean, we are obliged to make these patents because they want to increase the pile of patents to fight against each other. Yeah, so I think from this point of view, I mean, yeah, there is no problem providing some, or one could even think about a concept. Okay, we make it GPL, yeah. and a commercial license, yeah. If you like to use it commercially, then the company might approach you, yeah. But for scientific reasons, I mean, one can use it. That's one can think about all these different ways of arranging code sharing.
Thanks for the input.
So Paul, let me come up with one simple way of doing reproducibility. Is you can ask whoever the original author was, give them your example and say, generate an image that I can use to compare with. And that way you don't have to implement the software, get the other software, get the data, and it's a very effective way, and those other people will do their very best job to make their system look good. And I don't see many people doing that. But it's a good method.
It's a very valuable comment.
Does work.
But Chuck, let me ask a question back to you. So what if one of your PhDs is doing some work and then he leaves, and 5 years later somebody else will come up to you and say, oh, by the way, can you produce that again, and can you produce it with my data? And this guy went to, I don't know, like some other company and is away out of the field. So what would he do then?
A lot of the software that we generate in Ski is put into packages to be released to people through open source.
Yeah.
So we actually can produce it.
Yeah, but somebody at your institution would have to do it. So you would have to find somebody dealing with all this then, not the original intended people.
But somebody can do it. It's easy to do. It's easier than re-implementing something yourself. It's just a thought, and some people effectively use it, and other people can use that as a method.
Yeah, so it's a very valuable comment, but I mean, in the light of this Institute, it's very easy to say this, but right, but in the light of a small chair or so, right, where it's much more complicated, and it's I see it in the same direction as Helmut. So there you don't have the resources, and you even don't have some package to share, right? And or many people don't have the time to produce this package to share and so on. So yeah, in your light, it's quite easy, and I would really like to have this for everybody, but yeah, so we have to establish this culture, and this is not done yet. So if everybody would really produce his code and data in a fashion that it can be used and give it away, then it would be also easier for the chair of whatever to answer such questions, right? From outsiders asking for, do this picture with this data. But I think in the current state, you can basically write to whoever was in WIS 2008 and give them a test data set if there is at least one person who was on the paper which is still in the institution, and I think not half of them will get their results done.
I think there's a larger portion of people that care about having code that transcends a single student than you're giving credit to.
I don't know, yeah.
There's a very short comment on what Jeff said, and there's a proposal. So what was again the pain point? Somewhere here. Authors must compare the algorithm with those of X and Y, and I have no access to that. They haven't made it online. I contacted the authors, and for whatever reason, either they say they don't have time or they don't respond and so on. Would that be a valid thing that I can insert in my paper? I say, well, I tried to compare what I'm doing with the following 8 things published in SIGGRAPH or PBCG or whatever. I don't have the code, they didn't respond. Then I'm exempted from the comparison. I tried my best. So you shouldn't whine about me not comparing with because I just can't do it. Would that be acceptable? Because that would save us a lot of time. Would that, or does it make sense what I'm saying?
Let me respond yes and no. And the reason why I say yes and no would really depend on the complexity of the code. A simple example, look at flow studies where everybody does lick. Well, lick's pretty easy to implement. It gets more complex after that on what's going on. So if they don't give it to you, the question really becomes how much effort should you put into actually reproducing what they've done. In some cases, yeah, you may not be able to. Other cases, you may be able to. So it's going to be a big gray area.
No, sure, but I guess if you could compare something which is very easy to compare with, you would have probably, arguably, already done it. But there are these cases where there's something you just can't reproduce unless you invest 1 year to it. And then someone is going to fire back at you, well, you haven't compared with this. So that's a pain point that Nina and others have mentioned for everybody that tries to reproduce compare. So to go past that pain point and say, well, I did the best efforts to compare with. It didn't work out because that is not disclosable, and B, I contact the authors. Well, so then I should not be being guilty that I didn't try to compare with, so that should not be part of the review of my work. The fact that I didn't compare with, because I did the best. So
yeah, I think anybody who makes great attempts to say, even taking images from a previous paper and saying, here's what they've done and make comparisons, you've acknowledged what you can do. And that is the best you can do.
I think that taking images would be controversial as copyright issues related to images.
Actually, if they're both in TBCG, you can reuse them in TBCG without the author's permission because they signed the copyright.
Okay, thanks for the discussion. I think we have to pull the rest offline. And I think we have heard some very good points here, and I just want to make some more words. First of all, we should take this in mind. What was said, that there was already like this initiative 10 years ago, and we should not wait now the next 10 years till the next young researchers come up and try to establish it again. So we should really keep it up and spread the word across more people than those who are here. And so I want to thank the organizers of the EuroViz to letting us being here on this short notice and sponsoring us. The organizers of the EuroRVVV, which basically allowed a peaceful coexistence. And the whole organizing team of the EuroRVVV for the fast preparation, so it was like just less than 2 months time. and for the smooth workshop. And especially all the speakers and all the panelists, which I would like you to give a hand once more. And especially also you for giving these valuable comments. And I would like to see you after the panel in the offline discussion, possibly on the webpage, which will include, I don't know if we can gather all the slides. At least we have a video of the whole thing, and we will manage to bring it online. And hopefully we will see us again on one follow-up initiative. How matter it will be, and Min is trying to establish a panel on the this week, so I hope that this will go through. So and I hope that we will meet there again. And I hope, since there was a very fruitful discussion, and I hope that there is like interest in doing a second workshop, which could be on EuroRVVV 2013. And yeah, I hope to see you there again if it's happening. So thank you.